On today's episode of the Cryptoverse, here's an idea. Why doesn't the Federal Reserve pick a company it wants to buy, print the currency, and then buy it? TunnelBear is the simple VPN app that makes it easy to browse the web privately and enjoy a more open and secure internet experience. Try TunnelBear for free by checking out the link in the video description below. Hi there guys, and welcome to the latest episode of the Cryptoverse, your regular dose of news and commentary on Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies and blockchains. I'm your host, Chris Coney. So let's get into today's story. So today I've picked out another story from Bitcoin.com, and it's from John Southurst, and it says Janet Yellen's next big idea: use Fed money to pump stocks directly. This is Janet Yellen, the chairman of the Federal Reserve Bank. So let's see what this has got to say for itself. The article begins by saying, in the last decade since the global financial crisis, which of course was 2008 until now, we've seen all kinds of schemes designed to show that everything's really okay. Bailouts, bail-ins, quantitative easing, zero and negative interest rates, and even hints at helicopter money. The US Federal Reserve's latest thought bubble is buying shares on the stock market. All these plans have one big thing in common: more government influence and central planning in the economy. Now, my comment on that is that this is kind of like, it really reminds me of allopathic medicine. And the whole approach is based on masking or putting off the problem rather than curing it. Like, if you need to keep on taking a medication in order to function normally, then the problem is still there, right? And that's been the whole approach to the economic crises. And this is equally as flawed as the allopathic medicine model. Now it says here these plans have one big thing in common, which is more government influence, right? But I see something bigger than that. It's the fact that the Federal Reserve is a private company with the exclusive right to create currency. That's what the biggest difference is. If the law changes to allow the Federal Reserve to buy stocks directly, which they're not allowed to do right now, then the Fed could literally just choose a company it wants to buy on the stock market and then just create the currency in order to pay for it. And the thinking there is that if the Federal Reserve buys shares from companies, that will inject cash into those companies. Those companies can then go out and invest, grow their businesses, create jobs, and then boost the economy. Whereas we already know what's going to happen. When you give public companies massive amounts of cash, it never reaches the real economy. It goes to increasing the CEO's salary, it goes to increasing bonus payments, and the money just leaks out the board of directors to the board of directors of those companies before it ever reaches the real economy. So this idea of the Federal Reserve printing currency to buy companies on the stock market, now that would be bad enough if the government were doing it, right? But at least in that situation, the companies would become public assets, so that wouldn't be as bad. But it's worse because the Fed is privately owned and it has a secret board of directors. I mean, hell, who wouldn't want to be on the board of directors of a private company that had the ability, the exclusive right to create currency and then potentially now use that currency to just buy stocks and shares on the stock market? And where would that stop, right? If we take it to its extreme, well, I could just buy up every one of the Fortune 500 companies. And there's more. We've only just started here. There's more in this article. So in this section where it says the Fed enters the stock market, it says that the Fed isn't legally allowed to buy stocks right now. But it's Janet Yellen, the chair of the Federal Reserve, that has said that they could start buying company shares in the future. Now, it also says here that the Swiss and Japanese central banks already buy equities. The Bank of Japan in between printing trillions of new yen, also became, wait for it, a top 10 shareholder in 90% of companies in the Nikkei 225 stock market in Japan. So that little mental rehearsal we just did there about the Federal Reserve potentially creating the currency to buy stocks and shares in American companies, if you thought that was a wild idea, well, it's not that wild. It's already happening in Japan, and it's already almost to its conclusion, where the Bank of Japan has become a top 10 shareholder in about 90% of Japan's biggest companies. And what do you call an economic system where the government owns all the companies? That's called communism. And this potential for the Federal Reserve to start buying public stocks, this is perfectly in line with what Michael Maloney says would happen in episode 7 of The Hidden Secrets of Money, which I'll put a link to in the video description. And Mike says in this episode that the core problem is that these central financial planners simply do not trust the free market. And I agree with him. I would say that is the most supreme arrogance that I have ever heard. This small group of people think they are smarter than the collective wisdom of the entire population. And what's scary is if I asked them that question, they would probably and honestly say, yes, we are smarter than the collective wisdom of the population. Which to my mind, having studied psychology and human nature, is absolutely insane. So now, in the next section here, it talks about the war on cash. So the section is called "The Government Won't Fix the Economy, so Look Outside the System." And it says here, while academics say crime fighting is the main motive to phase out physical cash, in reality it's about removing spending control from ordinary people's hands. So I'll tell you how you can prove this to yourself with a simple logical experiment. Here's the question. Are criminals the majority of the population or the minority of the population? Of course, the answer is that the criminals make up a tiny, tiny minority of the population. So what sense does it make to take cash away from the majority just to stop a few criminals from being able to use it? Then everyone stops being able to use it. So let's follow that line of logic, shall we? What should we ban next? Cars? Mobile phones? The internet? I mean, criminals use all these tools to do business as well, so why stop at banning cash? Now, of course, this makes so little logical sense that their claim that they want to ban cash to fight crime is just a massive insult to our intelligence. So now let's move on to this orange bit that I've highlighted here. It says central economic planning doesn't work because the planners don't have access to accurate price information. And that's exactly right. It's not that anyone at the Federal Reserve is inherently stupid. Their poor decision-making is a flaw in the very system itself. They just don't have access to the raw information from the free market. And of course, they've got charts and graphs and technical analysis, that's all great, but it cannot be a substitute for real price discovery, which is where the free market sets the price, and does that on like a moment-by-moment basis. So any chart or analysis that you do immediately starts going out of date because the free market changes moment by moment, which is exactly what it says here in green. It says they use bad macro level information, which is high level information, generalized information, to make bad decisions affecting microeconomies, which is on a lower level, very person to person level, which then fail. Only private businesses and individual spenders know what a good or service is worth at any given time. That's absolutely right, because it's literally changing moment by moment. Like the free market is very simple. It consists of two parties, a buyer and a seller, who negotiate a deal. That's it. One has a good, one has some currency. They negotiate how much of that currency should be exchanged in exchange for the good, and a transaction goes. You multiply that up billions and billions of times, and you have the world economy. Now, as a result of that, certain peculiarities emerge. There are emergent properties, but that's fine. And where this all goes wrong, it goes wrong when you overcomplicate it, or when a third party steps in the middle and imposes rules and regulations to follow beyond that negotiation. So ultimately, the reason why we keep having a look at the old fiat system is so we can see it in contrast to our newfound, Bitcoin and crypto economy. So here in the blue color, I've highlighted where the article ends by saying, download a mobile wallet, ask people to pay you in Bitcoin, and ask to pay others in Bitcoin. And this is how we get back to the free market. We just need to forget the old system and build a new one. And we don't need permission. And this time there's no room for a third party to step in the middle at a later date, because a peer-to-peer system by default has no middlemen. And we then have the option of introducing middlemen to provide an additional service if that's what we want, but it's not part of the way the core system is built. That means that if the Bitcoin economy later on gets too complicated, we can always go back to basics. And that's the major difference between the fiat system and the crypto economy. In the fiat system, dealing with middlemen is forced upon us, and we have no choice in the matter. Unless we use cash, of course, which is why they want to ban it. So thanks for watching, guys. Like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you disliked it, leave me a comment with some feedback, get subscribed, or even consider supporting me by going to the Cryptoversity website, clicking through to the podcast page, and sending us a Bitcoin tip to the address on that page. Alternatively, if you don't want to spend any money, click through to the Steemit network and click the upvote button for this episode, and that'll give me some cryptocurrency without you actually spending any money. Alternatively, if you'd like something physical in exchange for your donation, then head over to the Cryptoversity merchandise store, where you can buy yourself a t-shirt with the Cryptoversity branding on it. That kind of thing helps us out a lot. Or if you'd like more structured information on Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, and blockchains, head over to the courses section and buy yourself an online course. That's all for today, guys. So until tomorrow and the next episode of the Cryptoverse, it's me, Chris Coney, saying bye for now.